Hey guys, it's Sean here from SeanSean.co, and I also do special on eBay. Today I'm going to talk about 5 things you can't do in Spain. So I lived there a year and then another 6 months later, so a year and a half total. I married a Spanish wife. So I know a lot of the cultural faux pas, so to say. Now, some of these are minor, but some of these are bigger ones. So one of the things I'll mention right away is Franco.
Well, I'm from Palo Alto, California.
So, a lot of Americans think, during World War II, the Americans fought the good guys. We fought against the Nazis and won. But one of the things that's skipped over in American side of history of World War II is the Spanish Civil War. So Spanish Civil War started before World War II, and actually was a prelude to Hitler deciding, everyone's weapons kind of suck, so I can basically take on anyone I want in Europe. So the Nazis supported Franco, who was this general who kind of wanted to, quiet down the government. The government was kind of in disarray. Nothing was getting passed. They were just fighting each other in Congress. It was a disaster, right, in Parliament. So they supported them. The communists ended up backing up the Republic of Spain. So the Americans didn't get involved because it's like the Nazis versus communists, who gives a crap, right? So we sat the war out, basically. Some Americans volunteered to help out the Republic, but generally it just was one of those wars we didn't participate in. Which is probably smart, we weren't that smart in Vietnam, but we were smart here not to participate. Unfortunately, what happened was, after the war was settled and the Cold War began, and the Soviet Union started eating all these countries in the East. They ate up Poland, Czechoslovakia, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. All these were free independent countries, and they were eaten by the Soviet Union. They were promised to be given free elections, and they just ended up being occupied by the Soviets and forced to have a communist government. Now, since Franco won the Civil War, instead of Americans going in and freeing the Spanish people from the fascists, he was a real fascist, they just said, well, we're fighting the communists now. And the other side that fought the fascists were the communists, so we'll just live with this fascist. So if you're American, especially American GI, do not say you're an American GI. You're going to be some deep crap, because people really hate the fascists. They've actually built a mountain. Franco was there so long, he was there from basically 36 in power all the way up to his death in 71, I want to say, or 74. And he had kind of pseudo-slave labor. He wasn't as bad as Hitler with concentration camps, but he definitely killed a lot of the population. I think you couldn't have more than 4 people meet on the street together in a group. So that was considered, you're planning for the overthrow of the government or something. So, they would literally just arrest you if you met with 5-6 people on the street. It was crazy. So, it has a little quirkiness. Now, that was in the 90s, and people still felt uneasy about it. Now it's 20 years later. It's probably a little more settling, as far as it's been 2-3 generations out. People haven't lived with the fear. But my wife, she was like 8-9 years old, and she remembered when Franco died. It was just people just went on the street and just celebrated, and it was just this weird, eerie feeling, because people didn't know if it was going to get worse, as far as some other crazy fascists that were still in power at that time are going to just crack down. and make it worse than when it was under Franco, or whether they're going to loosen up things. Luckily, they loosened up things. So what happened there was Franco, he had a number two, but his number two was assassinated by some underground groups, so hence the reason why any groups under 4 were arrested. But his number two was assassinated. I think it was Carrera, and he was a really nasty guy that probably would have shot a lot of people if he had come to power, although he would have been old too and not lasted long. But anyway, you get the point. So his number two was assassinated, so he's like, fine, I'll pass it back to the monarchy. So he arranged to, after him, Juan Carlos would succeed. And so, Juan Carlos at that point, he could have instituted kind of an absolute monarchy at that time, similar to the Bourbon kings, for her and maybe France, like, Louis the 16th kind of style, where you can just absolute rule. I mean, he could have really set that up because he really had it all laid out for him. But he took it over, and then he slowly transitioned to democracy. He relinquished most of the power, except maybe the control to reach the army. So since Spain's not really been involved in a war, that hasn't been an issue, right? Not like America, we're stupidly going all over the world trying to fight these wars that you're going to just end up flipping back to something else after they leave. Anyway, that's another story, right? But, so they haven't been involved in outside wars since, basically the Civil War. And before that, there was the Spanish-American War. That was probably their last big hurrah hurrah, which they lost, and it left a big stain on the public sentiment of fighting foreign wars. They just said, forget it, it's not worth it. We lost all our dignity, we lost our whole empire. So yeah, it's been really kind of a jaded look on foreign invention after that, right? For the Spanish army. Because you got to consider they were the biggest army in the world, and they were reduced to nothing but like some colonies in Africa. I mean, they really got their ass handed to them over time by the English, primarily all the rebellions in the Americas. They lost all their Spanish colonies, the big ones, and then later, subsequent wars with UK, a little bit with France, a little bit with the Americans was the last big one. So they slowly got all their empire just chopped, and feeling of they conquered the world, but then the whole world had kind of turned against them. It's a lot of bitterness under the surface there, but that's like 120 years by now, right? But that kind of still is there a little bit, I would say, as far as like going abroad or something. It's just not seen with camp. So there's a lot of bitterness from that war. He did settle things down as far as, it's my way or you're going to be strung up. So, unfortunately, there's always political discord around that topic. So don't mention you're an American GI. That's definitely a no-no. Probably most American GIs don't even get off the base, which is really sad. They don't even get to participate. Now, if you're in Germany as a GI, you're celebrated because you freed them from the Nazis. So it's really, really an unusual situation where one country you're really loved as an American soldier, another country you're really bitterly hated for having allowed Franco to survive. But we really didn't even support. We did have bases there, so yeah, we were an ally of Franco, but I don't think we were participating in any of the political discord and all that really nasty business. But yeah, don't mention you're an American GI. So that's one thing. And you will find people, when I was teaching English there, I don't know if so much now, but there were people that were that benefited under Franco. They were capitalists, they had big companies, etc. Or they were sided with Catholics. So yeah, you'll find people that have a statue of Franco sometimes in their house, and you'll be like, oh my God, But just like, mum's the word, don't say anything, right? That's just totally crazy. One thing you can go see if you want to see how wacko it was living under Franco was, I don't think I mentioned this, or I mentioned it badly, but I'll see in the edits anyway. So there's this mountain in Spain, and so he went and made a memorial to all the dead soldiers. It's called, Valle de los Caídos, so the ones that have fallen. So what he did is he had this semi-slave labor, and they built this hole in this mountain. And it literally took 20, 30 years, right? Like building the Egyptian temple, the Egyptian pyramids, kind of that kind of style of you're in power so long from 36 all the way to 70 that you can command this much control. So it ended up being kind of his funeral home. You know, they put his, you know, body inside a burial inside this crazy mountain. But you see it, it's just so crazy because you walk in there, they got this single cross that's in the, you know, fascist style, which is no decoration, just a real simple cross. But you know it's about fascism, right? Connected with Catholicism, because that was the Spanish version of fascism, is the Catholics really close. And the Catholic churches, they really benefit under fascism. Anyway, you walk in there in this giant hall. I mean, it's literally like the Vatican, almost big. It is bigger than the Vatican, I think, drilled inside this mountain. And you really get the feel of like how many people it took to drill this pointless hole in a mountain. Like there's no point to this except to serve Franco, you know, and you see how much power this guy had. Yeah, and if you talk to people there in Spain, you know, I get it's a kind of a touchy topic depending on which side they fought for. And, you know, it's literally like brother against brother, sister against sister kind of civil war, really nasty. You know, some people on one side, some people on the other side. But yeah, I mean, it's like, say, my wife's family, especially at her grandparents' level, a lot of them just disappeared under Franco regime. You said the wrong thing, they just take you off the street, take you to prison. You never were seen again sometimes. Sometimes you were seen again, but it was really dangerous to be arrested under the Franco regime. It was really a really badass regime. Same thing in any of these other autocratic regimes, like, say, China, North Korea. Oh my God, I got one of these windblower guys again. All right, let me continue this later. And yeah, so that's it on Franco. There's more I can talk about it, but so let's get on to some funner stuff. Some funner stuff is no feet on the table. So what do we mean by this? So in America, it's very common to you know, come to your friend's house, stick your feet up on the table. And I have a good story on that. I was studying abroad there, and we had a little office inside the Spanish university, and it was run, we had a top administrator who would be this guest professor, but she really didn't do anything. She was American, but then right underneath her, kind of the VP, or I don't know what her role was, but she was really the administrator behind it, and she would be there year in, year out with different professors coming on top every year, but she really ran the show, right? So she was Spanish, so I went in there, and where I'm sitting at the coffee table, and it's like the only American enclave inside the university, and I put my feet up on the table, and she's like, "What are you doing? Get your feet off your table, you pig." And I was like, "I'm in America, you ass." You know, it was a big, you know, misunderstanding, because I understood that rule, but I'm the only part of the university that's American, and I'm American. I want to be kind of American in this little American enclave. On the other hand, she's Spanish, just do with these obnoxious American students all day long. So she's like, "No, you have to have the bare minimum of Spanish respect," you know, so it's big understanding. So you definitely don't stick your feet up on the table, and probably ask if you want to take off your shoes. It's not like, say, in Asia where it's required to take off your shoes, but sometimes they want you to take off your shoes, so definitely don't put your feet up on the table. Another big no-no, which will just make you kind of, let me turn back here. Another big no-no to kind of make you look trashy as an American woman would be putting on makeup in the subway. So the way Spanish women do their makeup, they do it all at home. Mascara, lipstick, whatever. They don't put as much, I say their makeup is a little more subtler. It's more about the eyelids. So you do like really dark kohl around the eyelids. So you get the eyeliner right. It's probably changed since I've been there. I mean, I'm talking 98, so maybe they got the thick eyebrow thing that's going on there, and it was thinner eyebrows when I was there. But generally, just don't do your makeup in public. You're gonna look super trashy. That's just considered really trashy to do that. So if you want to stick out as an American woman, do that, but you're not going to get, you can do that as kind of a show, as you want to draw attention to yourself, but it's a really kind of negative light. It just looks trashy. It doesn't look, it not classy is what it looks like. So yeah, do all your makeup at home. You're gonna eat that 5-10 minutes, which you always save traveling, which American women like to do in America, but it is what it is, right? That's not too hard to do, I think. And when you're younger, you're probably not gonna use hairspray and all this other garbage. You're just gonna, some women do, but depending on your hair type, right? So another thing you don't wanna do, now, you know, this is usually true in all countries for women, but it's especially the case for men, because when I was there, it was kind of cool to, as an American, before I went, you know, have your scuffed shoes, looks kind of cool, especially if you got like combat boots, whatever. And my friend, he had like combat boots, right? Like these stark black, you know, metal toe boots. And you go over there, no one scuffs their boots that way. So he had to get them polished, you know? So you'd be, never scuff your shoes when you go over there. You know, that was much more of a bigger thing probably in the 80s when it was really popular with Back to the Future and all that. And people have purposely scuffed their shoes. I did that in the 80s, but I wasn't there till the 90s, so I wasn't really into scuffing my shoes, but I didn't worry about it so much, per se. But there it's just like, don't have scuffed shoes. That looks really low class. You don't have any money. Kind of, you're on your way to becoming a homeless kind of look. So don't scuff your shoes. Another thing you're not going to find there is American breakfast. So the reason for that is the eating schedule is completely different than in America. So in America, you know, we wake up, especially if you're going to a job, for say, you probably wake up at 6, but maybe you're a student, you wake up at 8. Either way, you wake up, you're gonna have breakfast, right? You're gonna have this big, large breakfast. People think in America you have to have breakfast. Like, oh, you're gonna have breakfast, you'll starve, it's the best meal of the day, blah, 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 blah. All this rubbish, right? So that legacy really comes from the fact America used to be a farming community. So if you're a farmer, what you would do is wake up at 5, 6 in the morning. You go collect all the eggs, milk the cows, and then at 8 or 9 you would go and eat breakfast. So even back then, they didn't have a big breakfast until after they had already kind of worked out in the morning, doing all this really physical labor. So this misconception is carried forward to nowadays, where Americans are like, we gotta have a big breakfast. And I enjoy a big breakfast myself on the weekends. You know, it's like, it's a special time, go for a big American breakfast, omelets, eggs, all this jazz, right? So, what I'm saying to you, if you live in a hotel, you're gonna have a continental breakfast, which is kind of like 2 eggs, toast, that's about it. Sometimes they might have, you know, a little buffet thing, so you might be able to get a little more than you thought you were gonna get. But yeah, and if you get fried eggs, they're not like the fried eggs here, man. These puppies, they deep fry, man. You won't believe it until you see it, but we were waiting in line at the student buffet line before we got our apartments in Spain. And we're waiting in line, and we come up to the eggs, and we're like, dude, what happened to the eggs? They're literally all wrinkled. It's like the weirdest looking eggs you've seen in your life. And I was like, what the hell happened to their eggs, dude? How did they do that? So, if you're Spanish, you'd be like, what are you talking about, Sean? So the way Americans fry their eggs, I've worked in the kitchen as well, a lot. So you put a little bit of butter, or maybe some non-stick spray or something, right? So it's just a tiny bit of film on your pan or your flat grill, and then you fry the egg. So then when you flip it, or you just take it straight off of there, just white, yellow, that's it. It might be softer, like we say, over easy, and that'll be like the eggs were liquidy. Over medium, it's almost gelled, but there might be a little bit of liquid. And over hard, which is fully cooked. Now Spain is just over hard, dude. But not only they're over hard, but they're deep fries. So the ends are all crispy and freaking brown. And you're like, what the heck happened anyway? So the eggs are a disaster. But don't expect breakfast, because the way Spaniards have breakfast, lunch, dinner is the following. You wake up and you maybe have a piece of toast. Coffee. You out the door. 10, 11. You might have what's called merienda. Now merienda is kind of like a small snack. You know what we call here brunch, but our brunch is gigantic, right? It's combining breakfast, lunch, and it's super gigantic. It's just breakfast done late, basically. But so their brunch, which is called merienda, it's just another snack again. It might be a small toast, a small sandwich, but really small. It's just going to barely top you off. Now the real lunch is 2 o'clock. So from 2 to 3, sometimes 2 to 4, depends on the company, depends on the school. But they have a huge hour-long lunch, maybe 2-hour-long lunch, right, break. Everyone, will go home. This is more true probably back in the 70s, 80s, earlier 60s, when people were really poor. Everyone go home, right? Nowadays, people are a lot richer. They go out to like a little bar, have some lunch. But that's when they're really gonna have the big lunch of the day. And it'll be stuffing. I mean, you have... I remember once I had lunch with the friends. They're like, yeah, come on over, we're gonna have spaghetti. We're like, all right, we have spaghetti, right? So make this huge spaghetti, they make a huge salad, right? Salad's very typical there to have with almost every meal for lunch. So that's great, you always have salad, which is really healthy, but then had spaghetti, which is, typical for kind of students, but they also have bread with it, right? In Spanish meals, you're almost always gonna have bread with everything. Now, what happens when you have bread with everything? So they literally brought 4 really skinny loaves. The bars, they're called barras, but they're really skinny loaves of bread. And this style of bread is really crunchy, so it's really crunchy. The middle's really nice and soft, but it's really, really basic bread. Wheat, salt, yeast, it's about it. They don't even put hardly any sugar in it. So American bread would be a lot sweeter, which I never really knew, because you taste like white bread, you're like, there's no sweetness in this, right? But it's neutral. So if you have, in Spain you have it without the sugar, you're gonna taste like what bread really tastes like. So it's very basic bread, kind of what the Romans ate. It's the same thing they've eaten since, hundreds of years. It's a little bit faster because probably the Roman bread was a big, wide breads, and they would take longer to cook, right? So there's a whole other story of how the baguette came about in France, but I'll not go into it. But anyway, so they gave us a huge baguette, and we each ate a baguette each, man, if you can imagine that. Plus we had spaghetti, plus we had salad. And we're growing 20s, so that makes sense, but still, expect to eat a lot of bread in Spain. So you have lunch 2, 3, 4, right? After that, you're gonna go to work till 7. So in the States, usually you get up 5, 6. I mean, some people work hard, so they work later, but in generally you get off a lot of times at 5 or 6, right? And then you immediately go eat dinner at 6, 7. In Spain, that's not the case. Get home at 7, you chill. You're not gonna eat dinner, minimum, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock usually. Now as students, we had kind of a crazier schedule. So we literally didn't eat dinner till 11 o'clock. Now it was just kind of a light dinner, but yeah, we're having dinner at 11 p.m. So you're gonna sleep on a full stomach, wake up, you're gonna be satiated, you're not gonna be really hungry at all, because you've been sleeping, you haven't been doing any activity, so your brain is just converting all that food into energy and then storing it. So you really don't eat the breakfast, so don't expect breakfast there. So another couple of food items you won't find, maybe you find it, but it's gonna be really crap, is peanut butter. So peanut butter there, you can find kind of the creamy type, but it really tastes like crap. They're not gonna have Jif Crunchy, forget it. If you are a GI, you can go to the PX. So as I mentioned before, there's American bases in Spain, in Torreon. Basically that's to supply Germany in case like the Soviet Union Russia now invades, right? So that's why we have bases in Spain. So it's a supply base from Spain to Germany is where, as any operations we do in Africa, which you don't hear in the news, but we probably in Africa quite a bit, here and there. Right, our last one was taking down Coney under Obama, which didn't work out. I don't know if they're still on that operation, but anyway, yeah, there's no peanut butter. That's going to be really crappy. Macaroni and cheese, forget it. You might be able to find it here and there, but I never found it the whole year I was there. And they just make pasta from scratch, so if you're really getting itchy for macaroni and cheese, you're going to be dying. Funny story behind that. So my mom has kind of a personality disorder. She only really thinks of herself, right? So so I send her, hey, send me a care package, right? I'm living in Spain, you know, now I'm asking, bring me macaroni and cheese, peanut butter, all these food items you can't get in Spain. That's all I really wanted, right? So I get it. Well, this was in Germany, but same story, right? She probably would have done the same in Spain. But anyway, in Germany, I get this food package. It shows up. It's got like this big sweater, and it's a generic sweater from Kmart, $10 tops, you know, like super itchy, crappy sweater. Man, I was so mad. She bought me this itchy sweater that's a piece of crap that I'm never gonna wear instead of getting food. So I call it. I was like, Mom, where's all the food? She's like, oh, it costs too much to send it, so I just sent you a sweater instead. It's much more economical. It's like, oh my God. So to save $5-10 in packaging or whatever it cost her, instead of sending me the damn food that I really wanted, she sends me this itchy sweater, which I didn't need, low quality, but you can't do anything if you got a crazy mother. So another food item you're not gonna get in Spain is pie. Now this is true generically all over Europe. So in some parts of Europe, in Northern Europe, like say Belgium, Northern France, Germany, they're gonna have these little tarts, and they're gonna be like, literally like the size of your thumb, and they're gonna have like one big strawberry in it, right? Or three strawberries in it, or 5 sprinklings of blueberries, like literally there's 5 blueberries on it. Some kind of custard, light tart. They're nice, but it's definitely not American pie, right? So forget about your blueberry pie, apple pie, strawberry pie. They don't have any of that crap. Another real thing that you're gonna have to get used to, which was okay for me because I was kind of over it by then, but they have limited cereal. So our limited cereal basically boils down to this: Rice Krispies, Rice Puffs. I don't think they're sweetened either. Corn Flakes. That's about it. There's like 3 or 4. So if you want Cheerios, no Cheerios. Chex, forget it. There's no Chex. All those oatmeal combinations with the nice granola, that's out the door. So literally, there's no breakfast cereals that you're gonna like, unless you like those 3. I think. Oh, they do Raisin Bran, I think too. Some form of Raisin Bran or something. But yeah, literally 4 types of cereal. That's it. So the funny story behind that is when my Spanish wife, we go to the supermarket, just like a Safeway or something. So we go to the aisle with the cereal, and you know, in America they do like literally like one whole side is just cereal, right? So it's like literally 200 feet of cereal. So she goes in there and she stops, and I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I'm trying to take it all in. It's too much. She's like, I'll come back later. I can't figure it out. So the first time I was in Spain, I had a similar experience. You go for cheese, right? And if you go to these small, they have these Dia stores. They're kind of like Aldi, a little bit nicer, but basically it's kind of like your really cheap grocery store. Very small, not like Trader Joe's. I mean, they might have something like Trader Joe's now. That's a little more upscale, but I think Trader Joe's owns Aldi. But anyway, so you go in there, you're not gonna see a lot. You're gonna see a variety of cheese, but not like what you do in a big supermarket. So you go to a big Spanish supermarket, that's these huge ones in these malls that are on the outskirts, where people can drive their cars. These things are massive. So we're talking like literally the cereal aisle in a normal American grocery store is gonna be all cheese solid. So you're gonna be like, what the heck is this? And the weird thing is most of those cheeses, they don't really have the American cheeses, right? You're not gonna find cheddar. You might find English, maybe a little bit of English stuff if you're in a fancy grocery store, but in a regular one, you're just gonna find Iberico, almost around, you know, all the cheeses in Spain. Plus you might find some French cheeses, right? And maybe some Italian, but really it's just French and Spanish cheeses, which, you know, is gigantic, you know, but basically they're all a couple of style cheeses, but an infinite variety. Yeah, like right now I'm living in California, you get almost any cheese in the world here, so it's really fantastic. Some of the cheeses are hard to get, like there's a cheese in Spain called, I don't remember what it's called, but I think it's called Teton. So it really means giant tit, which it does look like a giant tit. And you're like, dude, how can they call a cheese like this? Anyway, it's called like that. And that's kind of like a white bland cheese. There's another one called Queso Burgos, which is basically similar to our cottage cheese. A little bit different, but if you like cottage cheese, they definitely have a similar thing. It's not going to be exact, it's going to be a little different, but it's pretty similar. Yeah. So those are some of the major things you can't do in Spain or can't have in Spain. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and go check out my art on shanshan.co. Thanks for watching, guys.